Hello. Post announcements, live streams. There we go. Did it post? I think it posted. Post. And post. Hello. Can you guys hear me? Hello. This computer user, hello. Hello. Is the audio okay? Can you hear me fine? Oh my gosh, Snowpit, the red echo. Hello. Is my audio okay? Am I coming through? Hello. What's grand? Yay. Hello everyone. And welcome to another Resonance. I haven't done this one in 2 weeks, I think. It's because I've been away at a con, and also I've been kind of like preparing for it. So but now I'm kind of back. I'm also tired because I've kind of my sleep schedule entire, but I think I could do like Resonance for like an hour or so. So should we be able to get started, I think? I posted all the announcements and everything. So hello and welcome everyone. I'm gonna be answering your questions about Resonite for at least an hour. I'll probably like cut it off like shorter than usual. Because I've been kinda up for a while, but I thought like I'm gonna do a little stream. So if you want to ask anything about Resonite, make sure to post a message. Put a question mark, and I'll make sure to like get to it like when it pops on the thing if I can. We also have a whole bunch of questions from the Discord, so I'm gonna go through those. First, and once I'm through those questions, I'm gonna go to the Twitch ones. So we should be able to get started. So let me set up the camera so it's like, there we go. I'm gonna put it like this, and let's get started going through the questions. So, this is over here. So the first question we got is from Birdie412. They're asking, can you change your avatar to a fox bloop for this one? I don't quite understand because I used this as one avatar for a bit. The next question we got is from Pontus. Pontus is asking, you only have one question to ask, 2 guards at the same time, one always lie, one always tells the truth. What question do you ask? I'm a bit too tired for riddles. I do kinda roughly remember that like you ask like one of them like what would the other guy say? And that's like a way to solve the puzzle, but like I've already heard of the solution, so it's kinda I don't know if it counts or not. The next question is from Corey Canis. On a previous office hours, if memory serves, you stated that you prefer the GLTF open standard over other options. Do you plan to implement version 2.1 that kernel's formats working recently released? So right now we don't actually implement GLTF directly. We use a library called async. Thank you for the raid. We use a library called asym that has its own implementation. So if the library updates to it, like we should have the latest version too. There's a possibility we might end up like doing custom implementation ourselves that just imports that format directly because there's like C# libraries and so on. It might allow like for better integration, but no specific plans right now. Next question's from Colin the cat. If you are given magic power to fix one issue or implement one feature with a snap of a finger, what would it be? That's kind of tricky because it depends how the zero magical. Like, I have a problem with like these magical questions because there's like so much left ambiguous that like, and that's the stuff that I kind of like to probe out. So for example, say my response was custom shaders. How would an implementation look like? Because would be like the monkey paw, where like, like a snap the finger, we have custom, shaders, but it's the Unity ones, and we are now forever tied to Unity and can never switch again. Is that implementation, or did we magically implement, a custom render, that like has all the features we want and is implemented with that? It depends on that kind of answer. So just to avoid kind of complexity, I would say like something annoying or but it's also like has a simple fix. Like one of them would be, for example, some of the crashes that are like, pretty much like we can't get rid of them because of Unity, and they're affecting a lot, like, with like the Quest, hand tracking switching or something like that. So something like that. But I don't like the magical questions because there's just like I like to analyze the questions, and like you can't analyze a magical question without like just having to make a lot of assumptions and interpretation on how the magical, powers work, and so I never know how to like properly answer those. Next question is from Josh. Do you think Protoflex's behavior, performance, or flexibility in Resonite is held back by not being tightly coupled with engine? I thought about this after noticing how user from ID node is continuously changing rather than hooking on the user join leave forward event to update connected to listener nodes. After looking at the terms by myself, I felt like making it a hook to the event wouldn't be very clean in the bindings and how they interact with Protoflex architecture, leading to believe that Swide might make continuously changing. There's some more things I can point towards, such as changeable source versus inputs, and how they don't do propagate changes the first element, but I want to focus on a real picture and journalists determine what are your thoughts. So when I think you're getting a little like, it's like notice something, but like you're kind of like going, sorry, my cable fell off. You're kind of going like, off tangent a little bit, so there's multiple things to unpack in this. One, I don't think Protoflex's behavior, performance, flexibility is being held by not being tightly coupled with the engine. In fact, it's actually being held by that, which is one of the reasons why it was designed the way it is, compared to like, a system I designed before, which is Logix, which was very tightly coupled to engine, which was causing a lot of problems, a lot of like issues. That's why the design is kind of like, different. Two, the issue with continuously changing, that's mostly because like it's a little bit trickier. It's a little bit trickier to like, kind of hook like right now, like we don't have like the mechanisms to it. That doesn't mean those mechanisms cannot be added. We can add more mechanisms, and we can like, provide mechanisms to make it clean. So that doesn't really have anything to do with like, it doesn't have anything to do with like being tightly coupled with the engine. That's just something that can be implemented, how it kind of interfaces with the engine. But like you kind of want like most of the VM actually be like running within itself, not like, touching the engine for every little like, bit of execution. So in some cases it can be like kind of tricky because like even like if there's something that can be sourced, it can still kind of be tricky to like hook into something. Like in some cases, like the node would need to like hook up like a whole bunch of complex systems that themselves might not have change tracking, which makes it like, it just makes it easier to be continuously changing, and just kind of force reevaluation. But it is something that can be and that I would like to have tightened in the future for a bunch of nodes. But we need to like, weigh the integration, the time it takes to integrate, like, like some kind of like better mechanisms for some of those against, the benefits of it. So like we probably like benchmark it and see like this is causing a lot of issues here. These ones might make more sense to have optimized. But the mechanisms, they can be added. What I was gonna say, it doesn't like, even in this case, it doesn't change much. Like, like even if it was tightly integrated with the engine, you would still need to like have a mechanism where it hooks into things. So like it doesn't really make that much of a difference there. It's just a matter of like implementing the actual kind of hooking, because then you have to worry about like, what you're hooking into. Is this going to provide It's essentially going to give you all the changes like you might want to listen, because the node might actually miss some, and it can cause like some issues. But it is something that can be expanded into the future. We can add more mechanisms. I think like the Perflux's performance and flexibility is actually enhanced by not being that tightly coupled with engine, because there was what I feel was a mistake I made with Logix. Let's see. Next question is from computer user fake. If I wanted to try and make changes to how Resonite uses Unity for rendering, should I look in the Renderite Unity render repo or the Renderite Unity folder in the Renderite repo? Intuition tells me I should look at Renderite Unity render repo, but the Renderite repo says majority of actual rendering logic is this library, so I'm not 100% sure and we should not to look at. This question is tangentially related to the previous question about throwing rocks at Unity to get Buster's indirect draw. We kind of have to look into both, because they both kind of interact with each other. So like they're two repos that are meant to like interact. Computer user Froox asking, how is the Resonite data model unique from other peer-to-peer synchronization methods, and how widely applicable is it to non-sandbox genres of multiplayer games? I remember you mentioning something about implicit sync, but I'm not sure how it really works, or is it especially beneficial for Resonite? It is very unique. Like as far as I know, there is no other project that uses what we're doing, because in fact, like the network model that we use is like very novel. I kind of designed it, brush from scratch, implemented from scratch, and the entire engine is built around it. And to my knowledge, like no other project has done something like this. So it is very, very unique, and it's essentially meant to be like, I kind of want to do like a longer segment on this at some point, but I'm a little bit too tired to kind of go into details, and I kind of want to prep a little bit. But essentially, like what the Resonite does, it's sort of like a paradigm shift for how you do networked applications, which is like hugely beneficial to like making pretty much like any kind of like networking application. It's almost like I like to compare it to like it's analogous to how if you program in assembly languages and you switch to higher level programming language like C or C# or something like that, you suddenly don't have to worry about certain classes of problems because the abstraction layer handles them for you. Resonite kind of does something similar for multiplayer persistent experiences. So it's very, very unique and should be generally very, very beneficial. Next questions from computer user. Could it be possible to put all measures into draw procedural indirect commands to get some kind of generic GPU-driven rendering in Unity? So as I said before, I have this vague feeling that I'm currently losing battle against dimensional allegations. I don't know. I haven't looked into it, so I don't know. I would need to look into it, but we want we want to move away from Unity, so like I'm not really going to be investing time into it myself, unfortunately. You have to like poke around at it and see. Next questions from computer user fake. Will the reworked IK bring any performance improvements, even if the improvements are really small? Using radio's IK cooling mode to force IK to run at a really low update rate seems to shave off a decent CPU usage in populated sessions. It's just that not knowledgeable enough to know if this is due to having IK run less, or if something to do with less skin mesh updates, which require render side changes for performance and improvements. Actually, so contrary to popular belief, like the IK itself is not the biggest like source of the slowdown. Like it does take quite a bit of CPU usage, but like a big part actually comes from the data model interactions, which is why we have the data model rework as one of the things to help improve performance significantly in the future. And what it is, like it's essentially the whatever is making changes to the data model tracks it and makes change and propagates the changes, informs systems and so on, and there's like a lot of room to optimize there. And the problem is it's not the actual computations themselves, but like writing the results. In fact, you can actually see this with dynamic bones, because dynamic bones are multi-threaded. Like all the computations are multi-threaded, but then the writing into the data model is actually the slowest part, and that's literally just copying the final results of the simulation. So the new IK, like, it might help a little bit in some areas, but it's not the goal of it. So if, like, there's like some performance improvements, maybe there'll be some. There would be more things like, if I manage to like have it also like kind of multi-thread similar to dynamic bones, but I have to kind of poke around a bit, like, being able to do that without like reworking the update system. So yeah, like it's not the goal. The goal is to make the IK feel good. And also, like, even if it helps improve some things, like there's still like the bottleneck with the data model, which is what the data model rework is for. Next question is from Missing. Missing is asking for Froox. Since it's been a while and you seem to have switched to Linux on some machines, what's the current process for Gaussian splats? I haven't actually switched to Linux yet. Unfortunately, I'm still waiting on some things. Yeah, I'm still learning on Windows, unfortunately. Next question is from, oops. Computer user is asking, ignoring any of the technical difficulties or the effort required to do so, could writing unitary render to use burst compiler potentially give better performance? Maybe. Performance is like one of those things, like it's hard to reason about, like for any complex scenario. Sometimes you kind of have to like try it and test it, or at least benchmark it. So I don't know how would you use burst compiler, which is like, gonna be a big factor into like whether it helps or not. There are some parts like where maybe it would help, like because like we're processing big arrays of things and maybe that helps accelerate it quite a bit, but I don't know how compatible that's with burst and how, how much it would actually kind of help. Like you would have to measure things, or you have to like try it and see how much it helps. Do some research. It's kind of like usually what I do is like do some like research and see like is this worth like investing more time into. Next question is from Nuki Raccoon. I want to be able to say this in stream, but I wanted to say I'm very glad for word priorities, not simply because I use Linux and one thing on OK, but also see a lot of people would be bored by more functional performant OK, and how many people are interested in Resonite specifically because it fits into the Linux ecosystem. These are very good calls. Even other calls might have been good calls as well. I support making them. Well, thank you. Yeah, I think the IK that's gonna help a lot of people. Like it's like one of the kind of barriers that we like run into a lot with new users. Next question is from ShadowX. Any updates on the new node component pickers? The local string PR has been open for a bit with initial comments, so I'm wondering what's being worked at the moment. So the local, that's like a relatively small part. The bigger part is the actual code changes, and those are still kind of being worked on. So unfortunately, no updates. Next question is from Electra. I know the current focus has been okay. Free question related to it. What have you found to be most fun and most frustrating when working with a new system? It has to be adventure. So probably the most frustrating is like, IK is like one of those things where you it's easy to make it work on technical level, but it's hard to make it feel right. And that's kind of like, much like weird problem to solve because like, you squish a chain, for example, like your spine, and it's like it bends. Like, and the bones technically, they're bending within, their limits, but it looks weird. It looks wrong. And you have to figure out, okay, how do I make them bend nicer? So that's probably like the most frustrating part is like, the finicky nature of it. Most fun is just kind of like, there's actually making the bone tool. Well, I like to call it bone tool, the rig tool, like which lets you, create, rigs in game, and you can like, you can essentially convert anything into skin mesh, and like we made a lot of, cursed items with it, like, let's see, like the droopy, for example, and I can inflate it. So stuff like that. That's been kind of fun. I'm gonna put it in somewhere in the background. There we go. And the last question from let's see, let's switch this long one. Last question from the from Discord is Sanserga. I've seen you say a bunch of times that async flags nodes will eventually have multi-threading, for instance, in this issue. But right now, since we don't have multi-threading and the tooling to resync multiple threads, we have the real-time execution being single thread to resync impulses. For instance, I have a case where clicking button starts overlink processing, where every frame does a bit of work, clicking this button again with different configuration first visual execution to get set up or itself finished, but otherwise the messed up. The only way to see implement this right now is to have data model bool and rely on it currently being writable from impulse at a time. Does your parental multi-thread include a way to avoid breaking existing items that rely on single threading? I mean, that's technically what you're asking doesn't really have to do with multi-threading. Like once we add multi-threading, that's gonna be, something you as maker of your code, like invoke, is not gonna be, like that you take your code and suddenly like, it's somehow multi-threaded and like you get race conditions in your code. Like it's not gonna work that way. So like you generally if you have like single threaded logic, it's up to you to make that single threaded logic to like, work properly. If you have like multiple parts of your code accessing the same thing, that's not really a multi-threading thing. That's just, you managing your own like state. Um so it's like it doesn't really have to do much with multi-threading. That's gonna be like a whole system where you like, can spin off like tasks that like do, for example, some background processing. And then like you sync up and have mechanisms for that, but like it wouldn't help with the problem you're describing here. So that's all the questions from Discord. And also to have I'm already kind of saying it like in the chat, but check the Fox author who made the cool Twitch chat pro that like we're using. He has his birthday today, so make sure to wish him happy birthday. Happy birthday, Jack. He made his like super cool chat and was making a lot of cool things in Resonite. You should say, you should wish him happy birthday. Anyways, we're gonna start going through the questions from Twitch. So, computer using is asking, who are Resoniting the gloopy? Like, well, we just did. We inflated the gloopy. Dirt Nico's asking Schnoppet. I think my brain might be too tired for a Schnoppet. I'm having hard time thinking of things to think. Getting UK is asking, are you getting proper rest? I just returned from a con, so I guess I'm a bit like tired. I've been up like most of the day, but we'll see. Navy is asking, any clue when we will be able to use physics to make sphere, give it physics, and we can kick it around like ball with that perflex? Once rigidbot is implemented, but like I said, like in previous streams, like we generally don't answer one questions because development is complex and we cannot give you like specific times. Greg is asking, are you taking breaks to avoid burnout? I'm gonna just go back from recon, like I said. So I guess so. Derednik was asking, what do you hate about Windows the most? Just the fact that it's sort of slowly rotting and becoming less and less usable, and a lot of like small things. A lot of thank you for the subscription, Ashka Blade. But I was saying it seems to be very like slowly just rotting more and more. Like a lot of core behaviors, core functionalities, and like the CPU scheduler, like it's so bad and it's becoming worse, and they don't seem to care. Computers is asking, have you looked at for any Gaussian split trainer software recently? Mainly asking because I think I would really find it to get Gaussian splits of defining USA pizza. I've actually done like some of those, but like I've been playing with like Full Studio, and I want to mess around with more brush and just kind of compare them for the quality of the scans and reprocess a bunch of my things. Ridnico, out of all the Stargates, including the Dawn theme that they just made, which one was your favorite? I kind of like the Universe Gate for some reason. I kind of like the design of that. Daisy the Fox is asking, what is the status on custom keybinds? There's not really any status. There's not a feature that's being worked on right now. If it's something like you'd like to see, make sure to give the GitHub issue an upvote. Vasterag is asking, I have a question that is a bit over 500 characters, and I see there's no new Discord forum. Try to open for this quick, and I just posted here, but separate into more posts. There might be tricky if it's like really, really long question, maybe like ask some lead-up questions, or, and then kind of expand, because it kind of gets hard like asking like super, super long questions. Otherwise, we have to like wait for the next stream when we open a new Discord thread. And yeah, check the fact that Roy during stream just for my birthday. That's so sweet. Yes, happy birthday. I was wondering if I should do a stream, but this is a good reason to do one. Oh, these are questions. Review Plays Games asking, how's latency on the screen sharing? It seems to be just a few seconds. It's pretty good. We have to like, do testing once it's actually like implemented and so on. Grand UK is asking, will the screen share feature eventually have Linux support beyond the RTMP sync part? Not immediately, but at some point, maybe. Depends, what kind of new render we go with and whether we get like, the support for desktop implemented. So it depends on a bunch of ifs. So we'll see. To go for the new render is to be, open source. So like, if people are willing to contribute, like, desktop support, then like, that will help it tremendously. Next question's from Seven Void. I'm glad I recovered from your splat. Will we see more splats in the future as full-fledged worlds? I mean, probably. Like, I want to upload more. The problem is like they're kind of heavy, and I think like once we also switch to render, we can switch to more efficient methods for rendering splats, and it's gonna help a lot. But they're still gonna be probably kind of heavy. So it depends. Like the thing about splats is like they're also like they're essentially like the lighting is all baked, so like you don't. I mean, good like if you want to have them like be worlds to explore and so on, maybe you need like for something like this world, because let me actually show you, because this is a pretty big scan that I've done. Let me move the camera around. Like this is pretty big scans. Like if I go around, and let's say I go here. There's like a lot of area. There's a lot of cars and things, and there's like this whole area, and like there's like here, and this goes over here, and this goes over here, and there's like stuff over here, and there's like more things here. There's like this area, and this goes here. I didn't actually scan too much here because there were like people camping, so I was like, okay, I don't want to scan people camping. But I can still go over here and just continue on. See, this goes here. And then I'll go through this area. So you see, like this just keeps going and keeps going. It's a really, really large area scanned, and there's like a lot of detail. And like as a single split, like all the detail would need to be spread over this whole thing, and there's like this like large area over here. I kind of want to explore some of the methods for Gaussian splits with LODs. So like it's kind of dynamically loading detail as you move around the world, which I think might be like, necessary for something like this, and for having bigger worlds that you can kind of explore that are like Gaussian splatted. I don't know what this like. I need to reconstruct this one too, because there's a bunch of stuff that didn't align correctly. But yeah, it's I don't know, maybe we'll see stuff. But yeah, sorry for killing you with my splat. It just happens. Sunserga's asking, continuing from my question, we already have start async task. That name sounds like it should start in a separate thread. From your answer, we'll get another node that starts async context like a start async task, but separate thread. How do you rename the start async to avoid confusion between the two? Also lost the second part of my Discord question. Well, this is... I strongly recommend watching the video I did like on previous resonance because like I kind of like... This is a very, very, very common confusion with like, not even Resonite, but C#. Async does not mean multi-threading. And also like, separate thread does not mean async. Like those are two separate concepts. So like I think the problem is like, you're like conflating the two, and I think that's like where the confusion is coming from. I strongly recommend watching the video because I made a video clip about it because we kind of got this asked quite a bit. I made a video clip on our YouTube channel from the Resonance where async does not mean multi-threading. I drew some diagrams to kind of help explain things. Please watch that video. I think that's gonna clear a lot of misconceptions. But like, just to put it shortly, there's separate thread does not mean async, and async does not mean multi-threading. Like they are two separate concepts. Okay, he's asking how much royalty do you steal at a con? Quite a bit. I mean, like you've seen, like I just stole like the whole area. I also have like a lot of scans. I haven't like processed all of them yet either, so still got more. But also still like the photo booth. So this is the photo booth that they had. Actually, this looks kind of cool for the stream. Maybe I should have used that. There we go. Just there we go. Maybe I'll stream the rest from here, and I can put the questions there. Look, this just works. But also let me swing the camera back so I can show you stuff. I've also scanned a lot of the artboards. So like there's like stuff like this where it's like actually maybe the camera should be on this side so I can see easier. These things, so like people drew all kinds of cool art. So I've kind of I really like scanning these because I like preserving this kind of stuff. There was also like a thermal printer, so people could like send it stickers and it was like printing them out. So I got like this chunk. What else? I've got like this thing, which was like a thing in the forest that we stopped at the hike, and I've got like this one, which is like this kind of some sort of charging. Over here, I'm gonna spawn another one. They were like go-karts, which was super neat. Oops. People made like these kind of cool like go-karts. So I scanned those because I was like, oh, these are Malthus people. These were super neat. They were like racing in them. Some of them were like in fursuits. It was adorable. I remember there was like a fursuiter in this one. They were like sitting in there and they had like a box on their head and they were like so adorable. I could die. But it's kind of quite a bunch. I still got a few more, but I still got a few more, but I still need to process them. Process a bunch more. Okay. Well, the only issue is like this is now hard to delete. Check the Froox authors asking. You know what? Actually, this is a bad idea. I'm gonna eat this. Go back here. So check the Froox authors asking, do you have any plans on how you want to eventually implement mesh editing functions to Resonite? I'm pretty looking forward to being able to create meshes from protoflex, but tools to manually edit stuff would also help quite a bit sometimes. I'm just curious what you think might ship in the future. So there's definitely gonna be tools. So like you can like select vertices, move them around, add vertices, connect faces. I know a lot of the common kind of mesh editing stuff. There's gonna be the mesh DSP for protoflex. So you can, for example, have your base mesh, and you can like have a mesh DSP where, for example, runs it through like a bunch of algorithms, to like do like surface subdivision and stuff like that. And like as you make edits to the base, it will update your the DSP mesh also. Sorry, my cable keeps falling. So is this? No, this is the wrong one. Sorry. I'm kind of plugged in because I was up in VR for a while and like everything was dying as I started the stream, so I actually need to be plugged in. Okay, there we go. I'm charging again. But yeah, so it's going to be tools, and this is going to be part of Flex Access, because one of the things that I think is going to be super cool is like when community, anybody on the platform can actually extend the mesh editing functionality, add extra algorithms, add extra DSP nodes, add extra tools, like for example, like add a tool that like, I don't know, does custom UV mapping or something, or maybe like you select a bunch of vertices and it does some kind of operation on them. So I think it's going to be really powerful when it's an extensible system. So like the core of it's gonna be like a system that like allows to do that efficiently, and we're kind of gonna build around that. Every plays games is asking, for scans this big, do you use a drone? No, I just literally ran around with a camera taking lots of pictures. I kind of want to maybe get a drone at some point, but money. Seven Void is asking, for splats, does it prefer JPEG over raw image files? Generally, I recommend using raw image files if you can. I capture my stuff in raw because with JPEG you get compression. Compression introduces artifacts and that can reduce the quality of the scan. So if you can spare the space, raw files are definitely better. You also get more details from a raw. So you can, adjust the exposure, like if something's underexposed or exposed, you can like tweak it. It allows you to use some good like denoising algorithms on RAW files that you cannot do for JPEGs, which can also help improve the quality. So generally RAWs are better. I usually export mine to like a TIFF file afterwards, just to kind of like bake all the changes for processing. Like JPEG will work, but can get better quality otherwise. Computer users asking, is it possible to instance a skin mesh render? Asking because instancing duplicate of an avatar to get outline effect might save a little performance compared to not instancing. Also, I'm knowledgeable on how current outline effects work, so it's entirely possible that this already something sexy than outline works. As a reciprocation for so if you use the outline, it already like it doesn't. You don't need to instance it. The shader's already doing it. The shader essentially like takes the mesh data and it like displaces it a little bit and does like under render pass on it. So it's already kind of as efficient as it can be in that regard. But it is still like having to render the geometry twice, but it doesn't need to like do all the skin mesh transformations. Next question. Askablade is asking, there was a flags node for Twitch redeems, yet it doesn't seem to work at all. Will there be fixed in the future? Yes, we do want to fix it. Unfortunately, Twitch changed a bunch of the API stuff and it broke, and like now it kind of needs a different mechanism where we might actually need to make it so you need to log into Twitch to be able to access the data, which kind of sucks because that makes it a lot more complicated. So there might be like, we might need to build a bunch of UI, then need to link your Twitch account into Resonite, and then like the node can work, and that kind of complicates things, and we haven't had time to do that yet. Yeah, Jan Delta, or John Delta, how much reality do you plan to steal? Will you ever stop? So the answer to the first question is yes, the answer to the second question is no. The Bong Master's asking, I want to do scannings and photogrammetry. Fancy doing a workshop? I was kind of thinking about making a video on how to do like photogrammetry and 3D scanning. I've done a panel on one of the cons, and it seemed to be kind of popular. A lot of people kind of came have a look. Unfortunately, I was also kind of like feel like absolutely horrible when I did a panel. So like the whole panel for me is just a blur because like I was dealing with like a whole bunch of things at a time. But I would kind of want to do it again, especially if there's interest in it. Maybe like do like videos with draw some sketches to kind of help illustrate some things and stuff. Problem is, time. Let's see. Chicken Fox is asking, a while ago you added a component to like AI generated content. I'm very happy about that, but unless I missed something, we haven't yet really clarify rules on how people should use AI-generated content in Resonite. I think tagging component itself might not be very effective if it's not required to actually tag this stuff correctly. Do you have any plans in this regard? So we're kind of discussing it. The main thing right now that's kind of tricky is like, enforcement, because like we straight up don't have the resources to, go around and like look at content and be like, is this AI generated? Is it AI generated? Like, and then like figure out like things. So it's kind of like up to people like to tag it, and like if they don't, like, like, because that's the main thing is like, what if people don't tag it? What do we do? Do we proactively like go for a content? Do we wait for people to report it? How do we investigate? Because sometimes it can be hard to tell. So it kind of opens like kind of worms that like is trickier to deal with than just adding the component. And like, I'm not saying we not gonna open that kind of worms, but we want to like be prepared, I guess. Have it kind of figured out. And it's also like, question, what is, like, if somebody does it, like, found they do it, like, what is the punishment for it? Like, do we prevent them from uploading content, for a while? But, that's the stuff that needs to be figured out. Most supplies asking, what all parts of Stag need to be changing to add support for newer color spaces like OClub or OClutch? I'm not familiar with those, unfortunately, so I don't know. Like, if it's just color spaces, kind of like symmetry linear or gamma, like, I mean, the first thing would be like, is this something we would want to even use? And to like the render, we probably need to support it. We already have like some support for like color profiles, so like that kind of helps with some things. But like I don't know enough like context for like what those color spaces do. Is this like on the render side? Is this just something that you would specify colors with? Like, what would be the benefits of that and things like that? Okay, so that's the questions. I'm probably gonna keep it running for 20 more minutes or so. I don't want to be doing the full 2 hours today because I'm already kind of tired. So, if there's got like a few more questions, feel free to ask. But I'm probably gonna like cut it short today. I was kind of thinking about like canceling Resonance today again, but I was like already did like a few. So I'm gonna do one get through a bunch of questions. But yeah, for the color spaces things, it'd probably be better to like ask on GitHub and provide a bunch of like examples and provide a bunch of examples and references for things, so we can kind of understand context, like what this would actually do. If it's something that needs the render, very unlikely to happen until we actually switch the render, because I very much doubt like the version of Unity we use even supports those. And I don't know if there's something like that, like you do rendering it, because like for rendering it makes sense to do it in linear space. It's next question is from Granny K. If Discord became problematic or uncertain to continue, which platforms might get official server to replace Discord? Don't know. Whichever one ends up being popular. Like, this is one of those things like, where we generally don't get much of a choice. Like, we want to use the one where most people are. So the one where people go to would be the one like we end up like using. Next question's from Jack the Fox Otter. What's a planned feature, Resonant feature you're excited about that you haven't talked much about on stream yet, even if it's still quite a bit in the future? Oh my god, the problem is I talk about a lot of them, so I have to kind of think like which ones I haven't talked about, because I talked about terrain system, DSP, WebAssembly, talking a lot about those. I already mentioned terrain system. Timeline, I talked about timeline feature. I talked about the overlay feature. Like all the features, like I'm kind of like excited about. Like I think I already talked about them. Like so, it's kind of tricky. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know from the top of my head, and my brain's kind of too tired to think. I don't know. I don't know. Like most of, like the ones I can think about, like from the top of my head, are the ones we already talked about. Yeah, I don't know. Like, dusk me again when I'm less tired. Ozzy is asking, will the trick IK component be released standalone? But I won't take to mess with it. It's already has been. Um, if you let's see. So I'm really running, normal Resonite. So if I make a rig, that's just 3 bones, I can set it up as a trigonometric solver, and it'll solve it. So this is trick solver. Oh, and my cable's falling off. So yeah, it art is a thing. You can use it. You can play with it. It's in there. Oop. I'm gonna. There we go. But yeah, it's already out. Played with it. Computer using the first shader we use has 3 different quality repos in the shader repo. Do you know which one we use, or is it something selected by game? I just haven't seen it. I don't remember which one we use, unfortunately. I'd have to look. Dust Sprinkles asking, have you seen that issue I made about creating spots from inside Resonite? The gist of it is essentially allowing someone arrange or reorganize sample photos in 3D space that having to use the editors. It feels like it's a cool medium, long goal, depending how easy integrating some explaining the question, a bonus question mark to make sure it shows up. I think I've seen, I haven't actually read the issue, I'm sorry. I'm saying like Poppin, we'll probably want to integrate existing spot software. It's not something we would want to implement from scratch because that's like a whole company, of its own, like whole business doing that. However, this one of the things I would definitely want people to use in the future is user as a sort of multi-user, multiplayer UI for software. So if you want to build some software, and you need a 3D way to interact, with whatever you're building, Resonite could provide that. You just have an SDK, which actually I hope Resonite Link would be part of that. You could use it where all the cameras. I've been wanting to make integration with photogrammetry software where the cameras and the point cloud shows up in VR, and then you can have tools and instead of having to align the viewport or select things and so on. So you have I don't know, I'm just gonna grab this, and so you'll have some kind of point cloud, have a bunch of stuff, and then you want to remove some over here, you have to align. So I select just these, but I don't select the ones behind. Versus when it's in VR, it could be you get something say convex hull, selector, and I'll literally just draw a hull around these to select them and be remove these. So having a Resonite provide UI for existing software, I think that could be exceedingly powerful. So that is something I will actually. That is a good question. That is a good answer to Jack's question as well. That is one feature I feel I haven't talked about, where I feel this is going to be very, very powerful, using Resonite as the sort of front end, VR UI for software. And I think that could be very, very powerful. Especially if you make it very easy to visualize a lot of common things like meshes, point clouds, Gaussian splats, and so on. I might make it one of my creative day projects even. Okay, Wolf's asking Froox, I got 2 questions. Why are hacking cute? And also I was helping some beans bring the avatar in. They're experiencing a bug where deleting avatar they were in would also respawn them. I wonder if you have heard about it and have any idea what's happening. I don't know. Make sure it's reported on GitHub, and there's reproduction case. Chicken Forecaster, what's a really awesome idea that you haven't had yet? Time machine. Yandalta's asking, when a new render comes out, will we get new, better default shaders to use, or is the plan to go all in custom shaders? It's probably gonna be custom shaders. Like the goal is, the shaders set we have right now, they get converted into custom shaders. So like if you load existing content, it just gets converted into those, and you can then, take them apart, modify them, expand them, do whatever things. The set of shaders we have right now essentially just become content. And they're not going to be treated in a special. They're just going to become content like any other shader. Like, in fact, like, the system's not going to differentiate between, your custom shaders and our custom shaders. It's just going to be shaders. Oh, yes, it's in. Qualitorium's asking, what's for dinner? I already had dinner. I might have a snack, maybe. I've been snacking on things. Ozzy's asking, are you excited to work on collections after IK? At least I recall that being the plan. Want to think something will get open so much. So it hasn't been confirmed. Like, I've mentioned, like the plan for collections is tentative. Right now the priority is IK. The tentative plan is like for collections and then the UI. However, there are some things kind of coming down the pipeline that might actually change the plans. Which again, like I was kind of hoping, like people would like get that it's a tentative plan, which means like it's subject to change, and it might change. So I don't have like anything to announce yet, but please keep that in mind. It also depends like how some things kind of happen, but right now like IK. After that, like right now it's still kind of like maybe collections and things, but like well, if some things kind of come through, we'll might need to like change some plans. Nokikun's asking, how far down the list is the new render right now? Is it like one of the next things or something you plan down the line? I think you said already. So it's actually a thing that's being worked in parallel right now. We're in the second phase, which is like looking for candidates. If you want to help, please contribute to the repo. Check the announcements on the Discord. There's a bunch of information. So please help with that. The faster it goes, the faster we can get new render. Once the details depend, like what do we get from the second phase. So like I can tell you right now, it's just we need like second phase to go through. Dusty Sprinkle's asking, I haven't been to Prime's office hours in a while. How's business? That's the prime question. I can't tell you, unfortunately. I only like bits, and I've been kind of away for a bit, so we need to ask Prime. So I still got like 7 minutes left or so. If there's a few more questions, feel free to ask. But I might also like end this up like even earlier because I'm getting like a bit tired. I don't have any more questions. I'm sorry for like kind of short resonance today, but my sleep schedule's kind of not aligned well right now. Replace games. How's the workshop looking? I don't know what you mean by that. Like you can wanna say translate? I feel you might. Translate? I just said it. Dust the sprinkles. Have you had interesting dreams lately that you want to share with chat? I kind of don't remember my dreams. Like, it's actually now rare that I do remember my dreams. Sometimes asking, did switching to our sleep schedule mess with stuff? Lol. Well, a little bit. It's kind of interesting because I do like end up like meeting people like I normally don't. To check the Froox author, I know nested nodes are already somewhat implemented for Froox under the hood, but I also know that some CADs have strong opinions how that could be implemented. Is the way they want to implement already set in stone, or are you potentially going to rework the existing foundation? No. It's already implemented. There's like a bunch of unit tests. It's like functional. It's like working the way it's supposed to. We just need to integrate it. So there's not really much of a reason to like not to, because that's kind of how the Protofox is designed. Got like 4-ish minutes left, so if you get like a few more questions, I can do a few quick ones, but probably gonna be ending this in a little bit. Whoa. Computer using is asking, I know plans alternative, would nested nodes be part of collections updates, or would there be separate updates? Separate updates, like the nested nodes don't really have much to do with collections, that's just different things. Qualitorium, whatever happened with particle sliding, I kind of like was working on a bunch of kind of side things, and then like I had to deal with a bunch of other things, and I just never got time to get back into it. And there's like a bunch of branches I kind of need to like finish up, but yeah, like I need to kind of get back to it. But I had like a bunch of stuff to kind of come in the way, and then like my brain was like too foggy to like deal with the math with it, and like I just it can be hard sometimes, like when, especially when you get a bunch of like things kind of like you need to deal with. Ozzy is asking, how do you handle airplane travel? Like, does your body handle it well, or is it something you dread? I generally handle it pretty well. Like it for me, it's kind of funny because now it's kind of like just getting on a bus. It's just kind of like I used to be like kind of worried and like scared, like especially when I was like the first time I started flying alone. But like now I'm like I went through it so many times. I'm just like, I kind of sleep pretty well on a plane too. Yeah, and Delta's asking, I believe it was mentioned before, but are there plans on creating custom components via Protoflex or future WebAssembly system? Yes. Yeah, you essentially be able to make your own ones. We should have like videos on it on the YouTube channel too, where it's like about like WebAssembly and stuff. So I recommend giving those a watch. And I've got 2 minutes left. I'm actually gonna start looking if there's any channels to raid. So this might be like around this time, like if you're a streamer, this might be a good time to stream because we're gonna get raided. We do have the creator jam, so we can funnel people there. Yeah, it seems like only creator jam, so we're gonna send you over to Mandra. Check the Froox authors asking, how will packing Protoflex into static ASIC work when node groups have some additional things referenced individually, like dynamic variable driver, at one Protoflex nodes, or the slot of individual node being referenced somewhere else? It actually is designed for that. So I mean, it shouldn't like matter because like the assumption like with how it's written is like that like the slot that it uses as a proxy can be shared, and it can be shared for the entire asset, or it can be like the individual nodes, but it is designed for that. So yeah, I think I'm gonna start the raid. Right. Creator jam. So thank you everyone for joining. Sorry it's kind of short today and I'm a bit tired. But I hope like I hope like you like the streams anyways. I hopefully will be in better state like next week. So I can like be more better at asking questions. So anyway, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for supporting Resonite, like on all that kind of stuff, whether it's being part of the community or supporting us on Patreon or Stripe ideally. So thank you very much, and I'm gonna send you over to Medra. It's working. It's working. I think it's working. Oh, it's doing things. Okay. We'll see around wall. And I'm gonna stop stream and stop.